Welcome back, everyone. We have Perry Bush, Dr. Perry Bush from Bluffton University in today. And, you know, Perry, there was an important election here in Ohio not too long ago. So I think we should talk about some of those results and maybe what looks for the future. So welcome.
Absolutely. It's always good to be with you here, Chris, at WLIO. Thank you very much. You know, the whole country's consumed with bracketology. You know, we have the women's tournament starting today, the men's starting yesterday. So, Chris, maybe we should do a little political bracketology here. You know, on the Democrats bracket, Joe Biden won big and Sherrod Brown won big. That wasn't a big surprise. That's the number 1 and 2 seeds here in Ohio politics, the Democratic side. But it's interesting what's happening on the Republican side, Chris. Donald Trump, on one hand, it's clearly Donald Trump's party now. I mean, we had, and this is seen, of course, in the really hotly contested primary for the Republican Senate nomination to take on Sherrod Brown. And that's really a critical election. Republicans nationally are 1 to 2 seats away from taking a majority of the U.S. Senate. And Ohio is one of their prime pickup opportunities, and they need to field their best candidate. Well, we had 3 pretty strong candidates running the Republican side: State Senator Matt Dolan of Cleveland, and we had Secretary of State Frank LaRose, and we had a former used car dealer from Cleveland named Bernie Moreno. And Trump weighed in and picked Moreno, and Moreno won going away. I mean, he won over Dolan by 18 points, and LaRose is even further back. So on one hand, it clearly is Trump's party. And so if you're a Trump bite, this is great news. Moreno's a young, dynamic, in some ways attractive candidate, but he clearly is Trump's guy. And so what's got to be given, some people in the Republican Party knew there's actually 2 things. One is that, you know, Trump has a pattern of picking candidates that he loves, that do well in primaries, that don't do so well in the general election. I mean, think of Kerry Lake of Arizona, lost what clearly would have been a very winnable governor's race in there with Trump's strong endorsement. And Moreno actually, it may be cut from the same breed of kind of cloth. He is totally devoted to the president. I mean, he says that Trump won the last election. And of course, there's a mountain of evidence suggesting otherwise. I don't even want to talk about it. Papers are simply calling that a lie. Well, Moreno's endorsed that lie. He's coming out, as Trump is now, apparently, for a total ban on all abortions after 15 weeks. And those are not positions that are going to play well in statewide. And polls are reflecting it. I mean, Trump himself, polls show, has a double-digit lead over Biden in the general election. Moreno is double-digit deficit up against Sherrod Brown. And so on one hand, Trump's got his guy to run in Ohio, but on the other hand, hard to know. Maybe Moreno's not the strongest candidate. That's why Rob Portman and Governor DeWine were backing, in fact, Matt Dolan. Well, the old Republican establishment clearly is losing, and there's a new Republican Party. But interesting to see how this plays out, Chris, in the fall election.
Yep, I definitely agree. But I'm very curious how many people actually voted, because in an election like this, normally they don't get the big turnouts, and the big turnouts go later. You know,
absolutely. It wasn't that high, and if there's another worrisome sign for the Republicans, it's like 1/5 of Republican voters in Republican primaries are not voting for Trump. I mean, Nikki Haley, who had dropped from the race, still got 167,000 votes in the Republican primary. And there's polls suggesting that a large number of Nikki Haley voters are not going to vote for Donald Trump. They'll either sit it out or they'll vote for Joe Biden. And in a close election, that could be key. And, you know, there's reasons, I think, that some Republican voters are hesitant to vote for the former president. And all we need to do is look at a speech Trump gave a few days before Election Day here in Vandalia, right near the Dayton airport, in which he referred to immigrants as not human, as animals, in which he referred to the President of the United States with a vulgarity that I won't repeat on the public airways, and said that the people arrested for trying to overturn the election of last election and attack the Capitol, he referred to them as hostages and patriots. And meanwhile, current Senator J.D. Vance and Bernie Moreno stood there applauding this kind of stuff. And so this is going to be a tough race and an ugly campaign. And if that's a preview of coming attractions, Chris, it's going to be hard for those of us who believe in politics as a vocation in which people treat each other with dignity and respect. It's going to be a tough season.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough and long season. We already forecasted that one. So, well, Perry, thank you so much for coming on today. I think it's always a pleasure to have you on.
It's always good to be with you on WLIO, Chris. Enjoy the tournament.
Thank you. All right, well, don't go away, because we have more when we return.